my father.
It came bubbling up in the awareness of what was going on.
I started to recognize I'm seeing a pattern here. Every person I'm dating, might as well put my father's face on him. Might be a different background, might be a different way of acting, and I swore when I left home I was never going to be with somebody like my father.
Oh my.
Well, guess what happens? When you have wounds you need to heal, you're going to pull that into your life, that will activate that within you that needs to heal.
And that's really a common type of
It's
way to go.
100% what happens with everyone, with no exceptions. So whatever wounding you have, you will draw in the people into your life that will activate this. So I started looking for all the different ways that I could, okay, God didn't work. Not that God didn't work, it gave me a foundation, but all this unhappiness. And I didn't want to go back to drinking because I knew that path. And looking for money wasn't going to do it. And the house in the suburbs wasn't going to do it. So, okay, therapy might do it. Therapy didn't work. And then all these alternative types of things, like there's integrated breath work I tried body work, you name it. If somebody said, hey, you might want to try this. I read books on the subject. I mean, I tried everything.
Beautiful.
And I found what I do today. This was 17 years ago, and what it did is it took all the charge out of my emotions. So I became the observer of looking at what happened to me.
Self-observation.
Self-observation. Stop blaming the people outside of me for my unhappiness. Let's look within. Let's look what you're attracting into your life. But what I found that this work does as a soul reviver is what the work does is it's using your breath by staying focused on your pain or negativity. You can diffuse it completely. And when I say diffuse it, it means it'll take all the charge out of it. So it's completely gone. So let me share my father's story. I started, when I was in college, I left home because, like I said, college is going to make me happy. And I was started in a small college outside of my hometown, which is Green Bay, Wisconsin. And they had an evening event that was kind of like a vaudeville thing. And I invited my parents. I'd never done something like this before. I invited my parents and my godmother. They all lived in the area. And they came. And it was a fabulous evening. And at the end of it, I did something totally unheard of. I had decided that I wanted to start working on my dad issues. And I always gave my mom a hug, and I always gave my godmother a hug, but I went up to my father and I gave him a hug, and I said, Dad, I love you. And my dad never told me he loved me, and he never gave me hugs, and he gave me a very awkward hug, and we had just shared this wonderful evening together, and we're all laughing, and he said, I love you, Mary.
Oh,
so I kept looking for ways to heal this with my dad. And what started to happen with my dad is I was determined, because it had such great results, every time I saw my dad, which now I'm off to college and then I'm off working, but every time I'd come home, which wasn't very often because I lived in the Minnesota and he's 5 hours away in Green Bay. But when I'd come home, in front of everybody in the family, I'd give him a hug when I'd say goodbye, and I'd say, Dad, I love you, and he'd say, Mary, I love you too. And one by one, all my siblings started to do the same.
Oh, you chose love.
I chose love. And I chose to say, because I started doing all this work on myself on top of it, and it started to realize it's not outside of myself, it's inside of myself. My father changed. And it changed my entire family. Because they all opened up their hearts to my dad. My dad changed, and he became a very loving man.
Bless your heart.
And this man I grew up hating, and we all ended up hating. I had the most wonderful relationship with him. He died 5 years ago. This summer it'll be 6. And my dad became the most wonderful man.
Isn't that lovely? Because you chose to love him.
Yes.
And not hold that emotional
Correct.
baggage and blame him.
Exactly. And my peace was when I learned how to do this work. We had to work on each other. And I realized, because now I'm starting to have a good relationship with my father, all the stuff that's bubbling on the surface, which most people, a lot of people can overcome and start to have a good relationship, and it starts to replace it. But it's kind of underneath the surface.
Yeah.
It was all gone. I could look at all the crazy, stupid things he'd say to me growing up or did to me growing up, and he wasn't physically abusive. I mean, we got spanked, and sometimes he went too far. But I mean, some people are really beaten.
Yes.
None of it, I could look at it like it happened to somebody else.
So there was a forgiveness process.
It was even more than a forgiveness process. By the time I cleared out my emotions with it, Gigi, it's as if there was nothing to forgive, because it wasn't as if it was my dad and me. It could have been a movie of somebody else's life where they had this crazy dad who ends up, they make up and they, get a good relationship. That's how removed it was. It had no effect on me at all any longer.
Story.
The story was just a silly story that could have been a fairy tale or a nightmare, because it was not a pleasant story. But this is what anyone can have. I've been doing this work for 17 years, and it works consistently 100% of the time. Because emotion is just energy in motion.
Yes. Yes.
And when you use your breath to take the charge out of it, there's two parts to it. You feel whatever you want to get rid of, and you're breathing. And that's it. I'm not, killing chickens, or I'm not doing, dancing, and we're not, it's nothing crazy, it's stupid. I mean, it's just literally you're sitting or laying down, because laying it's easier to breathe, and you feel what you want to get rid of, and you're breathing. Deep breaths, because when we feel painful emotions or negativity, our breath goes shallow. So I'm there to kind of hold space for you. Now, what does that mean? It just means that I just am in this consciousness of knowing you'll get out of your pain.
Absolutely.
You'll get out of it, because it works every
Yes.
time without fail.
And you're very safe. It's very private.
Very
and
private.
Personal.
Very personal. It's to everyone. Whatever their issue is, we're going to get rid of it. Because what happened with me, once this worked for me, I went, oh my God, this works for everybody. And then I started to see it work for everybody. And then I started to watch people's lives change. And then whole families would come to see me, because gosh, if mom and dad started to get cleaned up, then the kids get cleaned up, and then the aunts and uncles get cleaned up. Wow, everybody changes, and they're all being kind and loving and wonderful with each other and enjoying each other's company, instead of, oh God, I've got the holidays where I've got to talk to Uncle Fred.
Yeah.
He's mean and nasty, and what is he going to say today? I don't want to even listen to him. I don't even want to sit by him. Oh God, but he's Uncle Fred, and he's going to be there. No, you can actually start to enjoy Uncle Fred.
So you are accepting of people where
they're at.
Yeah.
Because when you don't have an emotional around it, you just see them for who they really are, the authentic part of them.
I love that. And you're really in the moment. You're not carrying around what we sometimes term baggage.
Exactly. You've dropped those bags that are stuffed to the hilt that you'd pay big money if you were to go on an airplane with it. It's gone. It's totally gone. By breathing and feeling it. Yes. I get people to keep doing the deep breaths. If we would teach this to little kids, they wouldn't carry around stuff.
Oh, that would be great. And we know that causes a lot of ailments.
Oh,
of
my
course.
God. 100%. There is no exception. All of our emotional toxicity, our mental garbage, all the I hate myself, I'm no good, I'll never amount to anything that somebody may have said to you that was external, that now has become your inner chatter. Yeah. And then you pull in somebody into your life who's going to repeat this story over and over and over, and that tagline that is really ugly and nasty. You will keep drawing that in until you clean it out. And that's what this is doing. It's cleaning that out. And guess what's left? The gold of who you really are. And that's the mining for gold that I'm talking about today. Because your authentic self is so incredible. When I see people in pain or negativity, that somebody like my dad, for example.
Yes.
They're in pain or they're acting superior, but it's not who they really are. So then when people are like, well, that's just who I am. People need to accept me for who I am. They can accept you for who you are, but how about we pull out the real side of you? Let's bring out that side that's wonderful and kind and generous and connecting. And then you use Marshall's, let's talk kindly to each other. Oh my God. Uncle Fred, I can actually have a great conversation with you.
perfect.
Because what starts to happen is you pull the gold out of you. The gold isn't what you make.
Yes.
You can have